Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the epic narrative.
Well, every day's an adventure for me when it comes to technology. Oh, it was good news though. For not that any of this is going to matter, like in a year when somebody listens to this, but I got good news from Brian. He's like, Bob, you're 95% of the way there. Like you're doing great. And I'm like, okay. It's one of those things. It's like I followed the instructions and I guess I did it right, but I have no idea what I did. And so it's tough. Anyways, maybe by the end of this season, this will be so like easy for me. I'll be like, click, save as, click, move over, click, music, click, desktop, boom, send, share, whatever. I laugh because I'm sure for so many people, this is like normal conversation. And for me, it's like a foreign language. And I just sit here and go, I think I got it. I think I got it. It's kind of like being for me, in a any other place that doesn't speak English and getting directions. And it's like, I think we communicated good enough that I should get there from here, but I won't know till I arrive. Oh, glory. Well, we're having a good time though. I hope you're enjoying already the first couple episodes of Leviticus. This season, like I said, we're taking Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy as one jump into the whole thing. And we're going to, I'm confident we are not going to break down every jot and tittle of these books, but we are going to break down a lot of them because I think that there are nuances within the quote rules. Like we learned last week, the way that it's written encouraged people to be in relationship with God. Like I said, the difference between, I know I already covered it. The difference between offering and sacrifice. It was to invite relationship. It was to be personal. And that kind of continues here. We'll read the rest of this chapter and then we'll talk. If the offering is a burnt offering from the herd, you are to offer a male without defect. You must present it at the entrance to the tent of meeting so that it will be acceptable to the Lord. You are to lay your hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on your behalf to make atonement for you. You are to slaughter the young bull before the Lord, and then Aaron's sons and priests shall bring the blood and splash it against the side of the altars and the entrance of the tent of the meeting. You are to skin, oh my gosh, honestly, to go through all this, wash the internal organs and the legs. That's because they're like, everything's a blood. There's so much blood involved in this activity. It's crazy to me. You are cut it into pieces, and the priest shall arrange them according to, including the head and the fat and the wood that is burning on the altar. And you're to wash the organs again, make it a food offering, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Verse 14, if the offering to the Lord is a burnt offering of birds, you are to offer a dove or a young pigeon. The priest shall bring it to the altar, wring off the head and burn it on the altar. Come on. Oh man, it's so gruesome. Its blood shall be drained out the side of the altar. He is to remove the crop of the feathers and throw them down the east of the altar. He shall tear it open by the wings. And not dividing it completely. And then the priest shall burn it on the wood offering, and the burning on the altar, and the burnt offering, and the food offering, and the aroma will be pleasing to the Lord. Whoa. Like I said, that is just, that is some brutal descriptions of what's going on. There's just no way around it. All right. So elevation offering. All right. This is to be brought by just about anyone for any reason. This is like the go-to. The burnt offering. Bring it to the Lord. Elevation offering. It is, I read this elsewhere, right? This is the list of things that can be connected to it. When you intentionally break the law, you can bring an elevation offering. When you unintentionally break the law, you can bring a burnt offering. When you have no idea what to do, but you want to bring an offering, bring a burnt offering. When you didn't when you didn't do what you were supposed to do or what was supposed to be done, you can bring a burnt offering. When you have sinful thoughts, you can bring a burnt offering. When you had thoughts about breaking the law, but you didn't break the law, you can bring a burnt offering. When you're going to a festival or a feast and just want to raise your spiritual level, you can bring an elevation offering. Elevation, haha. What does that mean? Going up. I know a lot of you think it's a large conglomerate of churches, Elevation Church, and a worship team that sends out, new worship hits every week, guaranteed, because they pay for it. No, Bob, stop. That was rude. You're right, it was. Bob's like, you're not wrong. It's just rude. I know. I know. Watch your mouth, Bob. All right. The offering. This elevation offering, right, is completely burned up in the flames. Whoosh. It atones for sinful thoughts, and it comes up. That's it's a picture of a lot of things. Honestly, though, when you read that description, how can you not picture the amount of blood that is involved in this activity? It's quite crazy, actually. Because they had to take out all the organs and wash them and then put them back on the altar, and they had to wash the legs, and then they had to, oh my gosh. I just keep I keep remembering like the pictures that I would color during my Sunday school. Now I grew up in church. There's no way around it. Like I said, I was always in church. So I knew all the color. Every week we'd get a coloring page, and the teacher would talk about something, and we would color something, and then sometimes we'd do a craft along with it. And sometimes, the teacher wasn't prepared, and we would just color and play games or whatever. Sunday school's a blast. But I just remember, like, the priests were always like perfect, right? They had the perfect little apron, and they had the hat, and they had the clothes and the sash and the sandals. Like they were looking fine, and often, the people they wore clothes, but they did not look as nice. Like these guys looked the equivalent of like a 3-piece suit, and everybody else was wearing, pants and a t-shirt type of combination. You're like, man, you just knew the priest because they looked great. And I'm thinking, in reality, people knew the priests because those guys were covered in blood when they were on duty. And that's probably the purpose of the apron. And can you imagine doing their laundry every day, depending on, who was on duty? And there were a lot of priests. And just like any sort of butcher work, right? You get better with practice. So there were probably some that were incredibly slick with this stuff. The slicing and the peeling back and the removal of things and the washing, like they were like great. And then there would be people, like me in technology, that just kind of were like, okay, insert the knife here. Okay, cut it. Good. Okay, let it bleed out. Okay, that's good. All right, now, and they're looking at their mentor priest, like, okay, I put it here. Okay, and I saw, man, this is really, the bone is really thick. Yeah, you got to work hard. Keep pushing. Yep. Oh, no. You don't want to puncture that. No. Oh, man. Sorry. My imagination continues to run. So you want to, the elevation is the going up of the offering. So it atones for sinful thoughts that come up, goes up in smoke. It raises the owner's status from a sinner to a higher spiritual status, all right, to a higher spiritual plane. Now, this is really, I think, significant. The elevation sacrifice, the offering, I didn't mean to say sacrifice. The elevation's offering was to raise your spiritual status. In other words, the same thing that happens when we confess our sins, like we reattach ourselves into an intimate connection with God. That's elevating our spiritual status. And that's what this was supposed to do. Elevate one's spiritual status. This offering is one that brings all things are burned up in that offering. So you burn up everything you intentionally did, everything you unintentionally did, everything you thought about doing but didn't do. You bring it all and you lay it all out. Sinful thoughts, or just the desire to, like, hey, there's another festival this month. I just want to make sure I'm right with God. I want to be on a higher spiritual. You could, if you had the physical ability and the flocks to connect to, you could do this every day in order to elevate your spiritual status. That was what you put your faith in, not the fact that the elevation sacrifice, the offering, was going to put you anywhere, but that by doing this, you were picturing what was what was spiritually happening. All of you was going to be consumed and raised up in the smoke toward heaven. That's pretty awesome, I think, anyways. Now, it also acknowledges the enemy can and will take advantage of your thoughts and unintentional aspects of your choices in order to pull you down. Right? The enemy's always looking to take advantage. The enemy's never happy until you're dead. Till you're dead. He does not get worn out along the way. He doesn't say, well, I ruined their life enough. I'll move on to other people. He just keeps the throttle down until hopefully he runs you right into a wall and kills you. That's always his goal. His goal is always death. God's goal, always life. So this elevation offering was designed to bring life to you. But it acknowledges that the enemy is out there and you may have unintentional aspects of choices that you've made, and he wants to pull you down. He wants to make you believe that God has been separated from you. You see, he doesn't want people to go do an elevation offering, right? He wants people to sit back in their tents and say, I am too unworthy. I can't even have, a good enough relationship with the Father in order to even bring a sacrifice, an offering. I interchange those words way too much. An offering. I can't be close to God. And God's like, bring the offering. Bring the offering. Let me show you. Everything will be consumed because you and I will be one. Everything you intended to do, everything you didn't intend to do, everything you thought you did, everything you thought you might want to do, everything you did do but you shouldn't have done, anything that makes you think that you're unworthy, let's just burn it up. Let's just burn it up and you come up higher. You come up into a better connection with me, because that is the goal of this whole system. It's pretty cool. It brings you back up and it clears things up. That's the idea of being unblemished. Now, it gets super specific in chapter 22. We'll go into that, I'm guessing, when we get there. But the concept is this: a completely healthy offering symbolizes that the one offering it, the one that's offering, is the one that's going to be closer to God. He does so, or she does so, with nothing amiss, nothing wrong, nothing omitted. nothing missing. The idea of being a perfect sacrifice, again, a perfect offering, was not in order to bring some level of restriction and elite, only the best of the best of the best, otherwise God's not going to be happy. Because a lot of us believe that, right? A lot of us have believed that lie, that if it's not perfect, God's not happy. If I'm not perfect, God's not happy with me. He won't be happy with me until I become perfect. And I'm only perfect in Jesus. And I won't be perfect until I die and go to heaven. I mean, it's crazy how much faith people put in their spiritual life to not take place until they die. They literally trust in death in order to become what Jesus says they are, which is children of God, people of a new mind, people of a new nature, things that he gives us. And so many preachers don't want you believing that, because it would mean that, you don't need the preacher every week. And you won't feel guilty enough to give up your time and your money to do what the preacher wants done. It's a fascinating twist and turns, but this is what the language of this offering is this. You bring a perfect animal without spot or blemish, because I want you to know that that's how I see you. Nothing is missing. Nothing's been omitted. Nothing's a little off. You, the one that is making the offering, everything about you is perfect the way I see it, and we are going to be closer. Do you see the identity issue here that's happening? God sees us as spotless and unblemished. Oh, Bob, now you're talking blasphemy. That's blasphemy. We are sinners saved by grace. Sinners for the rest of our lives until we get to heaven. No, even back in the Old Testament, God says the offering represents you, and we're going to consume it and raise it up in the smoke. We're going to raise it up to a higher spiritual level. I know that doesn't work if you want to guilt people into behaving differently, but it's what's written. So nothing was cut off, nothing was held back, nothing was damaged in your mind or heart that may hinder the connection to God. Now, this is a voluntary offering, all right? No one, this is funny, no one could be coerced to offer this offering. All right. No one, this is all voluntary. Now, if someone is required to bring an offering, by law or observation, by offense of others, and we'll get into offerings that are, that kind of have that kind of requirement. Like if you've done this to your neighbor, you need to bring this kind of offering. So if you were in that situation, now the elevation offering, you couldn't be coerced into doing. It was completely voluntary, which is awesome. But if you were in a position where you were required to bring an offering in order to make things right, and you refused, I love this. I love it because it's so religious. Then you could be coerced, according to the Jewish tradition. I think this is funny. You could be coerced into bringing the offering. You could be made to be willing by others, and in the teachings of the sages and the oral traditions of the sages, it is kind of ironic that we have oral traditions of the sages that have been written down. But anyways, they were the people that were coercing somebody should always believe that deep inside the heart of the one that you're coercing, that person actually really wants to bring the offering and to make things right. But the evil one has them so, blinded by lies that they don't understand that they really want to bring an offering and get right with God and with man, whoever it was that, that they've offended and are supposed to connect, to bring the offering for or whatever. So while you're coercing somebody, you keep reminding them and yourself that, listen, this is something you really want to do. You really want to get right with God. I don't want to get right with God. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We're gonna drag. We'll drag you, but I don't want to go. Yes, you do want to go. And you could you could argue with them. You could beat them. You could drag them. You could do what by any means necessary. Get that guy right with God, because that's what matters. And deep inside, they know they want to be right with God. So don't let them try to convince you that they don't want to be right with God, because they really do want to be right with God. So let's just keep working on this and keep working on them, because eventually we will get this right, and they will be right before God, because that's what really matters here. So eventually they would willingly do what they truly want to do, which is bring the offering. And honestly, at some level, it's kind of humorous to me, because they are trusting that the person in their heart is good, and they just needed to be reminded, sometimes quite forcibly, but that was it. I have heard stories, etc., of people that were in the Jewish world, Jewish culture, that were coerced into doing things. And this is the heart of it. The heart of it is, we can coerce you because we know deep inside you actually want to be right with God. And we're going to help you be right with God because, well, that's what we do. We are the elders or the priest or the family leaders. And sometimes it did get down to family. I've read stories, seen a couple documentaries where, inside families, they were coerced to, quote, do the right thing. Unfortunately, sometimes that meant marrying, somebody they didn't want to marry, or having to separate in a relationship from somebody who they were truly in love with, because you need to do the right thing. And the right thing is this, to obey your father and submit. And then we get into all that kind of mess of misinterpretation of what God intended. And that's usually when we all get in a mess, is when we misinterpret and misapply what God intended. And we see it here often with this elevation offering. So anyways, the list of things that are in that passage, right? The herd, the flock, the fowl, it all has to do with making an offering from yourself. Remember, we talked about that a little bit last week. You weren't supposed to borrow a sacrifice. You weren't supposed to buy it. No, you can buy it. You weren't supposed to borrow. You weren't supposed to steal a sacrifice. It had to be something that you paid for or something that you raised, because it was your offering that you were bringing. So if you can afford a bull, do it. But if you can only afford a bird, which honestly was like a penny. It was so cheap. And if you could trap birds and find one without blemish or spot and bring it. Like there was plenty of ways to get what was necessary. But you could do whatever you can, and you could bring it to the tent of meeting, and you can make an offering to the Lord of mercy in order to get closer to him. Basically, the Lord's saying, you do whatever you can to bring yourself closer to God. Why does God want us close? Because he's an egomaniac, that's why. No. We've covered this before, I'll cover it again. He wants us to be close to him because we become like that which we worship. We become like that which we love. And God knows that for our best, in our best interest, is for us to be fully immersed in the purpose and identity that he gave us when he created us. That new mind works best when we're working out of the identity that comes in God. That new nature works best. Sorry, I couldn't find that word, nature. That new nature works best when we work out of the fullness of the purpose that God has given us, and we take that new, that identity and that nature, and we work out from this place of authority and understanding of all that God created us to be. And that's what this sacrifice is pointing toward, to elevate our spiritual plane, to bring us to a higher spiritual level. God says, this is what I want you to do. Do it as often as you can with whatever you can find. Bring it. Sacrifice it. And watch what happens. When you are consumed, then you are raised up. Now, I know that there are many who love the idea of being consumed, and they have very, passionate messages about letting the fire of God come and consume all that you are so that you become nothing, and then he becomes everything. And although I understand the passion, I think we miss something when we make people think that everything they are needs to be consumed. We miss what Jesus did on the cross. We miss the fact that he has given us his nature. He has given us his mind. He has given us his heart to release on this earth. And yes, we should consume things. We should allow the Lord to take out from us anything that continues to hinder our awareness of what he's made us and what he's given us. I think there are many people who just completely are out of touch with what God made them to be. And because they're out of touch with it, they have circumstances and relational deficiencies that cause them much strife and much striving. So when they hear a message about, being consumed by God, they want to be consumed because they don't think that they're worth anything. Now, I don't know the heart of those that are saying the words. I really don't. And maybe a lot of them are speaking of this sort of consuming, where you bring yourself to the Lord and allow your offering to go up into a higher spiritual plane, which is what God wants for all of us. Maybe that's what they're talking about, but I don't think it gets interpreted by many people that way. I think most people interpret it to mean I need to burn everything about me because there's nothing worthy in me. And we miss what Jesus has done, and we call what Jesus has done unworthy, and we make it something that is less than what he's created us to be. Well, hey, there you go. We are done with with episode 3 of season 4 of the Epic Narrative, and I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I look forward to doing more. I really do, because I think we're going to learn a lot in the law about what it was intended to create in the culture, and just how far religion took it from its intention. If you ever get concerned, just always go back to Jesus and say the original intent of the law is seen in Jesus and what he did and what he said. That's where we get to know exactly what the law was intended to be. It was intended to make us love God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. All right, that's it for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Epic Narrative.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
Well, I like this episode. I listened to it again. I was like, I like what we learned here. I really do. The idea that these offerings were designed for reconnection. They were not designed to remind somebody that they were a horrible person. You can come anytime to the Lord and remind yourself of just how awesome you are, how loved you are, how much He wants to be connected to you and will never leave you. He never leaves you. The offering was just there to remind our physical being that the truth is He's never left us. We didn't get this, we are never alone. We are never alone. I started to cringe a little bit when I thought about the religious aspect, how religion came in and started to, immediately started turning it into a place of condemnation and coercion. The coercion of people, the manipulation of behavior in order to make somebody think that they're connected to God, or think that they need to do something to be more connected to God, that they can grow in their connection to God. All of that stuff just makes me cringe now, because I was involved in it so intimately, so passionately for so many years, and now it's just like, no. The only thing that lacks is my awareness of how close God is to me. My awareness is what needs to be worked on. I don't need to beg God to show up. He's here. And I do know some people get frustrated with that as they become convinced of God's ever loving presence in their life. They realize so many worship songs on Sunday are all about asking Him to do something that He's already done. Please show up. I'm already here. Come close to me. Yeah, I can't get any closer. Like all of that. And but just a word about worship. And I know I've said it other places on the Epic Narrative, but I'm going to say it again here. And that is, so many worship songs are written from a specific place that the artist is at. Many worship songs, I should say, are not designed to preach theological truths. They're there to express the emotion or thoughts of somebody in a moment. And sometimes our lack of awareness of God's closeness has us begging Him to show up when He's already there. And it feels real when He does show up. It feels like, wow, He's just entered the room. Holy Spirit has fallen on me. It does. It feels true. It's not true, but it feels true because we are in that place, in that state of mental understanding, and we think, I've got to get there. He's got to show up, or I am not the same. I can't go on without Him. And it's like you literally haven't gotten this far without Him either. And you don't even have to know Him as your Lord and Savior. He doesn't leave anyone. He is ever present with all of His creation. And His goodness will not leave you alone. Which is, again, why so many times people get confused, because they think God caused something bad to happen because something good came out of it. It's like, no, something bad happened because of your choices and the enemy's desire to kill, steal, and destroy. But my goodness always shows up because I can't ever leave you, and I'm good, and I'm loving. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. I pray that you guys continue to grow in your awareness of God's goodness and your awareness of His ever loving presence in your life, because God has been good all through time. Have yourself a great day, everyone. I'll see you next week on the Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.